Happy New Year's Eve here from the Benverse. My name is Ben Friedman. Today I am talking the worst movies of 2022. There is not enough time to watch every movie, thus I think you should know, you the audience should know, what are the movies that I recommend are worth watching and what are the movies that I recommend not watching and why those reasons are. I think it is completely valid and I'm going to jump into it. Starting at number 10. This movie was a movie that I actually saw today, New Year's Eve, because I wanted to see if it would make my 10 best films of 2022 list. What I was shocked to find out is not only will it not be making this list, but it was also a movie that I dislike so strongly that it's actually making my 10 worst films of 2022 list. And that movie is Darren Aronofsky's The Whale. I dislike The Whale immensely. And Brendan Fraser is great in this movie, as is the rest of the supporting cast. I think they all give strong performances. Hong Chow as the nurse in particular is probably the actual standout of the film. She and Brendan Fraser have so many great moments, but I dislike the rest of this film. Darren Aronofsky clearly does not have empathy for this character that Brendan Fraser is portraying. The title alone feels cruel. It doesn't feel emotional. It does really feel like Darren Aronofsky is watching him and just being like, ew, isn't that gross? Isn't this terrible how this guy has to live? And there's no feeling of empathy, which sucks because Brendan Fraser, Hong Chow, they are bringing the empathy, they are bringing the emotions, they are able to redeem this film as much as it is able to be redeemed, but it never comes close to feeling cohesive, to feeling emotionally impactful. The character played by Sadie Sink, who is Brendan Fraser's daughter in this film, she matches that cynicism, that cruelty, that disgustingness that I'm talking about, that when I see Darren Aronofsky direct this film, I believe they are on the same wavelength. And Brendan Fraser, Hong Chow, they are on this empathetic wavelength, and these two wavelengths never coexist together well, and it's just a mismatch. I felt it trying to make me cry, and I never bought into the emotions that this film is built on, and it's a film that I vehemently disliked watching while watching, so The Whale is my 10th least favorite film of 2022. Coming in at number 9 is another film from a director that is very well respected. I've liked a handful of his films. He's coming back after a long hiatus, and it is a film that I went in, I was open-minded to it, and I ended up leaving just with nothing. I found this film so boring, so dull, never impactful, never disgusting, I think, as the film thinks it is, and the story never connected with me in any meaningful way, and that is David Cronenberg's Crimes of the Future. This is another film that I really disliked that had really good performances. I thought Viggo Mortensen and specifically Kristen Stewart were quite good in this film, but I never connected with this story. I found a lot of the gross out imagery to be gross for gross sake, but it's never gross enough that I was kind of appalled by what I was watching. I just watched it and I'm like, oh, that's kind of disgusting. That's just unpleasant to look at. That's how I would describe this film. It was just unpleasant, if never vehemently triggered an emotion out of me. And I was just sitting there looking at my watch, waiting for this film to be over. It did nothing for me. I am not a fan of Crimes of the Future. Coming in at number 8, is it even fun to kick something that has already been kicked so hard and so much in the 2022 lexicon? I'm doing it anyway because this movie's horrible. It's so lazy. There's nothing enjoyable about it. The lead performer gives just such a uncommitted, so boring, terrible performance, and that is Morbius, starring Jared Leto. I dislike Jared Leto as a person. I think he is a pretty disgusting, cruel, mean, manipulative person based on everything that I've ever read about him, based on this method acting that he does, based on some of the allegations that have been hinted at but never addressed fully. I don't care for this guy. I think he's a bad actor through and through. He has never given me a performance that I've ever connected to. I just find this guy so bad to watch as a screen presence, and Morbius is just the utmost example of that. This film has nothing of interest in it. This is a film that is so clearly leading to a post-credit that actually makes no sense within the Sony Marvel universe. Everything is lazy. The special effects, this film is garbage. The only redeeming aspect of this movie is Matt Smith as the villain, and that's just for that one dance sequence. But outside of that, this movie's bad, and I cannot recommend Morbius. Do not waste your time with this movie. Coming in at number 7, I never actually reviewed this movie, if I am correct, on the channel, but I saw it a few months ago. It was one of the films that premiered at last year's Sundance Film Festival. This is a director who made 2 movies this year, one of which I liked, called Catherine Called Birdie. I thought that one was a really good movie, worth your time. This other movie she made, I was not a fan of, and that is Lena Dunham's Sharpstick. Now, let me get this out of the way because I do think this is important. I'm not the biggest Lena Dunham fan, but I also don't dislike her. I think she's made good stuff, and I think she's made bad stuff. This movie is everything that I dislike about Lena Dunham, just encaptured. Sharpstick follows this young woman who's never had real sexual experience, and thus she goes out and starts having an affair and really wants to explore her sexuality. The issue I had with it is they really portrayed this main girl in this film as very childlike, thus a lot of the scenes came off as creepy to me. The comedy, which I think can best be described as cringe comedy, I found it far more cringe than I ever did comedy. There is just so much while watching this movie. I felt uncomfortable in scenes that I think were supposed to be comedic, and I found myself laughing at scenes that I think were supposed to be a little bit more serious. And like I said, I never connected with this movie. There was no point where I understood who this character is. She's such just not even an unlikable character. She's just kind of such a nothing blank slate that she's almost an amalgamation of ideas and ideas that don't feel fully fleshed out. And it's just a movie that I understand what Lena Dunham was going for, but it really left a sour taste in my mouth. Coming in at number 6, this one's going to piss off the teens. I have Where the Crawdads Sing coming in at number 6. I was not impressed with this film. I know this film ended up being a pretty great box office success this summer. It definitely overperformed. And I like Daisy Edgar-Jones. She was in another film this year called Fresh, which I thought she was quite good at. In this film, I don't think she is doing much. I think it is a bland, overacted performance throughout. I did not like this story at all. Where the Crawdads Sing is a movie about how hard it is to be a white girl in the South during the 1960s. That's dumb. It just is. It's not a good story. There is no real emotion. The fact of the real life aspect of this author, and if she did or didn't kill someone, and the meta-ness of that movie does make for some interesting discussion to be had on this movie. But yeah, overall, I did not enjoy myself watching this movie. It came off as super cliched, super emotional, super sappy. Coming in at number 5, this one should be obvious. I think there's been people who have been waiting for this movie to be on the list. Honestly, it could have gone up a few spots higher, and maybe if I was not so impressed by some aspects of the movie, such as the cinematography, some of the performances, the lighting, the costume design, I would put it higher, but there is a level of technical craft within this film. The issue is that the director and writer have no empathy again. The same issue that I criticized The Whale for having, this film has it tenfold. This is a movie that is only interested in showing us an abused woman and her being abused over and over and over again. It rapes her, it sexually harasses her, it assaults her, it beats her, it just kills her. You see her have an abortion. It's cruel, it's disgusting, it is so horrible to watch. If you haven't guessed the movie, I'm talking about Blonde by Andrew Dominik, starring Ana de Armas. Now, Ana de Armas is good in this performance. I think she captures the look of Marilyn Monroe. The problem is they don't have her do anything except cry and scream and look like Marilyn Monroe, because this film is only interested in being a torture porn of Marilyn Monroe. There is no substance to this film. As I said in my original review, Andrew Dominik's big thesis on Marilyn Monroe and the 20th century is that Marilyn Monroe had daddy issues, and that's why she was the sex symbol that she is, and that's why she killed herself. It's so self-indulgent. It's 3 hours. It never needed to be that long. It is such an unfun watch, and it captures and tells nothing about Marilyn Monroe, and it is completely fictitious throughout, which is totally fine, but this film presents itself as a biography. So people who see it are going to think this is what Marilyn Monroe's life is. Not to say that she didn't deal with aspects, harassment, sexism in Hollywood, but to do it as they do in Blonde is such a disgusting, narrow-minded, sexist, misogynistic, whatever you want to call it, view of Marilyn Monroe's life, not deserving of the watch, and it is truly one of the worst films of 2022. Coming in at number 4, it infuriated me that it even exists. When I was watching it, I watched this animated movie and I'm like, oh, this is just a blatant ripoff of Pixar animation. And it's done poorly, but you know what? It has a sweet enough message for kids. I can kind of get on board with this for a little bit. It loses so much steam as the film goes on. And by the end, I'm like, this is a bad movie. But you know what? It's for kids. Who am I to really criticize it? I'm sure 3-year-olds will like this movie. And then as the credits are rolling, I see one name and one name only. And I'm like, I hate this film. F this movie. It is Luck. This is a film by Skydance Animation, which was released to Apple TV. If you do not know why the credits pissed me off, it's because I saw one name, John Lasseter, the disgraced Pixar head who was kicked out in 2017 due to his sexual harassment of women. There was continued reports of that harassment while he was at Apple TV. And I was just like, when I saw that name, it made my blood boil. I truly was like, now everything about this film feels 100 times more insulting. The fact that I would criticize that it was like a poor man's version of a Pixar movie, and then I see it and I'm like, well, it's done by the guy who ran and created and made Pixar what it is. 2, it's done by this sexual harasser who just continues to get work in Hollywood. 3, it has just a cast that continued to support this movie. I just was disgusted by this movie. It was truly, when I saw John Lasseter's name, it was a jump scare while watching it. And if he wasn't even involved, it's not a good movie, but the fact that he's involved in it and that he profited off it makes it even much worse than it already was. And I hate Luck. Do not watch this movie, and F John Lasseter. Coming in at number 3, I like a lot of this director's filmography. I thought him doing something with a little bit more childish wonder, with a little bit more comedy, while mixing that horror aspect that he is so good at, was going to make for an enjoyable film. And then I watched the movie, found out it was close to 2 hours, and it is a comedy without any laughs. And that is Rob Zombie's The Munsters. I have no real love for this property, but when watching this movie, I understood he was going straight for the aesthetic of this film, but when it is a comedy that goes on far too long and none of the jokes make me laugh, but I can feel them trying to make me laugh, I just ended up sitting there, just straight-faced, bored out of my mind, wanting this movie to end. Rob Zombie was not the right guy to tackle this movie, and I noticed and felt every minute of this movie passing by, and I strongly disliked The Munsters, coming in at number 3. Numero dos. So, coming in at number 2 for me is another movie that I saw much earlier this year. And I was actually excited for this premise. When I had heard the premise of a character escaping plantation only to find out that she was actually in the 21st century all that time, I thought that was a cool mix of Jordan Peele's Get Out mixed with a nice M. Night Shyamalan twist right at halfway through the movie. And I was excited for it. I like Keke Palmer, but ultimately Alice delivered neither those fun thrills, and it does not deliver on the mystery that this film promises. Instead, it delivers on a dull film through and through. Common is just not a good actor. There are scenes where he is supposed to elevate the script and he does nothing. He gives Keke Palmer nothing to work with. Keke Palmer is fine in this role, but again, this character is so underdeveloped. There is this whole aspect of it where you are waiting for her to escape the plantation and realize that it's the 21st century, because that's what the trailer tells you what this film is about. That doesn't happen till halfway through the movie. Then you're just stuck on this small little tangent, and then it ends up in a finale that is so unmemorable, and it is just a film that I was watching. I think what really disappointed me is I thought this premise could be great. I thought they really could have had something special, and it was a film that is just so dull, so uninteresting that I just started zoning out as I was watching it, and that's why Alice is my second least favorite movie of 2022. And now, can I get a drum roll, please? Senior Year starring Rebel Wilson. I haven't talked about this movie on air because I hated this movie. I did not finish this movie. This was one of the few movies. I saw 200 movies this year. I turned it off. Straight up, turned it off with about 20 minutes. Had to go to the bathroom. Never came back to the movie. I'm like, nope, I don't need to finish this. There's no reason to finish this movie. This is a comedy that follows a popular cheerleader in 2001 in high school. She falls in a cheerleading accident, gets a coma, wakes up, I believe, about 19 years later, and now decides to go back to high school to finish her senior year. But of course, since she is now of a different generation, high school has changed. So when she says offensive things, when she says slurs, when she makes jokes, when she makes fun of gay people, oh, that's not funny anymore. Oh, the PC police. Oh my God, that's the joke for 100 minutes. I kid you not. That is what it comes down to. I found the Rebel Wilson character so annoying in this film, so unlikable. The comedy is just downright terrible. It's so lazy. I don't know who thought this was a funny coming of age / high school romp. It's none of those things. It is so horrible to watch. And Senior Year is the definition of a not so funny movie. And I had a horrible time watching this movie. Thank you all for watching this video. It has been a great 2022. I did the worst list because I want to start with the negativity and end with the positivity. So soon you will be seeing my top 10 favorite films of 2022. And as well, I said there was some bad films this year, like the ones mentioned below. There's a lot of films that I loved from this year. I thought it was a great movie year overall, and I can't wait to talk about the films that I loved from 2022. Thank you all so much for watching, for supporting this channel. I appreciate it all. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to the Beniverse. Thank you all for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.